You know, most of us, we all live with budgets. We all live within our budgets. And I was just wondering, or at least most of us try to live within our budgets. I was just wondering, how much money do we have set aside that we've been able to save in a surplus manner towards building or additions or building this middle school? Because, you know, this is the school of thought I come from. If you can't afford to save money for something that you want, you can't afford to buy it. Because the interest, and all the expenses of buying it when you don't have the money is just not worth it. I'm a machinist by trade. I make a decent living. But I'll bet you 3/4 of the people in this area make half of what I make. How are they? I don't know how they're going to afford this. I don't understand why you don't take a vote, let the public decide if we want to just fix the school that we have or build a new one. Yeah.
Greenest choice you can make is using buildings that are already standing and not making new buildings. And what all these people behind me don't want to have happen is this new middle school go in just to be that proverbial feather in someone's cap.
Amen.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, what everybody wants, and I know everyone in front of me, and I hope everyone behind me wants, is what's best for our kids and what's best for our community.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily a new school. And I can tell you from what I've seen in the paper, it really does feel like it's being pushed.
I feel a little foolish because I did not know that this was voted on already, or that a lot of this was going on. I just was hearing bits and pieces. And I have kids in the grandkids in the Hereford school. I'm pretty active, and I'm really just kind of surprised. I really didn't know that all of this had taken place already. My husband is a teacher. I'm a retired nurse. So we both get that money, taxes do go up. But I do feel that you're working against a situation right now that right now this little area is being bombarded with threats of all these taxes, with the whole police thing going on. I mean, that meeting is going on across the town. Have to leave here and go there. But it's overwhelming, you know, for just a small area to be having the threat of taxes for a new building, the threat of taxes because the police situation is going on. And then knowing that, you know, even government-wise, what are we looking at for the next 4 years when they put somebody in place that really is not fond of public education? How is that going to affect us over the next 4 years? So I applaud you for putting all this time and effort into this, and I don't have an answer for you, but I do ask that you just consider that this small area is really being bombarded as far as being told of how much taxes is going to be going up for so many different things. So I just ask that you consider that. Thank you.
Instead of putting this up for a vote to the taxpayers in this township, you people made the decision for the whole school district. I can see making decisions for the whole school district, but not decisions of this magnitude.
Bob Hansel, Pennsburg. I have a lot to learn, but as I understand it, we have the new ability for people to get funding directly for going to private school, and that would come out of the school fund in general. And if people learn that they can do that more and more, they may find that there may be only 60% of the money that we had last year left over for public schools. And we need to think realistically that maybe there won't be all that need for an increase in school size. and that if people are using more and more of the private schools on the program that is going to be enacted in a month or so, there'll be a big change. Something to think about.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll let you go on then.
Okay. So the Facilities Committee had 3 meetings, 2 in March and 1 in May, comprising of a total of 3.5 hours deliberation. They brought their suggestions onto the board on May 4th. At the same time, the board was made aware that there would be an 18-month moratorium imposed by Pennsylvania on any project reimbursement availability if the board did not act quickly. Approximately 1 week later in May, all the documentation was prepared within that 1-week time period, enabling the district to submit the preliminary intent to build a new middle school to the Department of Education. There was a special meeting on May 11 to address this urgency, and at that time, there were already preliminary architectural plans in place as well as an initial cost estimate. Now, the architectural firm had originally suggested that the district's best option would be to fix all the schools and buildings we have now and put an addition onto Marlboro Elementary, equating to about 1/5 of the cost of the middle school, to alleviate all temporary overcrowding. Unfortunately, I was not at the early May Facilities Committee, but I have subsequently listed it onto the district's website, listened to it on the district's website. The Facilities Committee members and the rest of the board can be heard giving their opinions about why they think building a new middle school is a good idea in theory. I did not hear, however, any discussion on the costs associated with building a new school or any inclination of the board to actually ask the taxpayers or would be willing to spend such an exorbitant amount of money. In my opinion, and many of the people I've been talking to, there should be a referendum vote for a project of this wide of scope. Instead, the district pushed forward without the input of the taxpaying public. At one board meeting this year, there was discussion for the input of the final plan would be a compilation of opinions of the teachers and taxpayers. I haven't seen anything in the paper or seen any advertisements of meetings scheduled for the public to come look at preliminary plans or have input toward the planning of this project so that we can intelligent use of taxpayer funding. We have a local wealth of knowledge in this valley that should have been tapped. No local contractors have even been contacted about quotes. The only quote was from an engineering firm who doesn't build anything except dreams. What I've seen is what amounts to a wish list from teachers in the district. Of course, anyone would want to attend a brand new school. I was at the board workshop meeting where updated plans were explained by the architect. Unfortunately, there were only 3 or 4 others in attendance. I did not feel this was a lack of interest on the public's part, but a lack of awareness by the public resulting in a plan by the district to fly under the radar of the public. During that meeting, the plans revealed such amenities as a catering kitchen, science labs, a world-class auditorium, as Ms. Smith put it, separate choral practice rooms, and a large band room. There are supposed to be beautiful vistas of the reservoir from many locations within the facility. My thought is students should be concentrating on their schoolwork instead of daydreaming on being outside. This new building is just about the same size as the high school. Now, I went to the Age Middle School with no more than 10 years ago. To be completely honest, I've said in prior meetings that it's teachers that shape the lives of students, not buildings. I went to a college that was 274 years old. The buildings weren't world class, but the teachers were. Lastly, my agenda item I wanted to comment about was that it's suspicious to me that the financial reports are not available today. I made comments last time period about the investments and the amount of money the school has in capital. I could assume that a group with a budget in the millions could produce financial reports pretty quickly, especially that these reports won't be available until 8 days after the Act 34 meeting. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Eve Pohala, and I live in Upper Hanover Township. I am the one who's responsible for your October letter that I hope you received. I dropped it off at the district for you. Unfortunately, I'm typically not able to come to board meetings on Thursday nights because I am the person who is responsible for teaching the GED program at the Open Link locally. I have to say I think it's pretty excellent of the Open Link to offer this opportunity to our students. And I think I offer a little different perspective on the school situation. I have a whole list of things on my pink sheet that I wanted to talk about. Most were addressed with regard to the problems with the economics of the school is basically what it boils down to. I have some problems with the basic economics of, or not the basic economics of the school, but the basic facts of the school as they are. Whereas Upper Perk is a very good school district. There are great things going on here. There is no doubt about that. But there is, again, a reasonability to live within our means. Upper Perk sits, if you look at a 10-mile radius around Upper Perk, there is 11 districts that sit in a 10-mile radius of Pennsburg Center. Upper Perk Yeoman School District has the highest dropout rate of all 11 districts. That to me is overwhelming. And I'm the one that gets them when they drop out. And my PhD is in special education. I work like a dog for my kids. And my 65-year-old students are my kids. I put a lot of time and effort into them. I hold hands. I deal with people crying when they don't pass exams. I do whatever it's necessary to make kids, my kids, succeed. It goes back to needing great teachers. And if you need a reference for it, try Todd Whitaker's book. An excellent book on the great things that great teachers do differently. Dr. Drake, you had a comment in the board meetings that said you were, basically, to paraphrase, you're upset with the results of the academic achievement going down in the district. That is very concerning to me, because am I the one that's going to get them later? I don't want kids to drop out. I've been in the high school here pleading with kids, with the guidance counselors, to please not drop out, because it is not the easy road to take. It's harder to get your GED than it is to pass high school. It truly is. There's no wiggle room. And for those of us who are in special education, we know that many of our students need that wiggle room, and there is none at my level when you're talking about GED programming. So I beg you to consider where you're spending your money and to look at ways to keep your students in the classrooms to graduate so I can put myself out of business and not have kids in the GED program.
That's a tough one to follow. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I'm Bert Scheid from Marlboro Township. I'm here tonight to ask you to reconsider your vote on a new school project like many of us are. The Valley can't afford this new proposed middle school. I've talked to many that have said if this goes through, we'll have to leave the area. The decision to move forward on a new middle school versus renovating the existing structures seems to have an overwhelming support for the renovations versus the new school, and with great concern for their families and well-being. I spoke to on November 10th about PlanCon and the state program that we seem to have been relying on for reimbursement for the new school for the renovation, or for renovation. I asked the board that evening about a long overdue payment of $800,000 and asked you if you got paid, and you said yes. But the actual amount paid that day was $682,227.35. Wasn't full payment. During my research, I discovered that PlanCon is not funded. This was confirmed through my state representative, Marcy Topa, and my state senator, Mensch. So we, the people of the Upper Perk Valley, will have to complete the burden of this project laid on our backs that will reach well above $100 million when it's all said and done. The Valley doesn't want it, nor we can afford it. As we all get ready to close out to 2016, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a safe and happy New Year. I believe in my heart and soul that you as a school board know how to educate our children, keep them safe, and keep the spirit of Upper Perk alive. Please rethink building the new middle school. Thank you.
Is the board aware of how much traffic is on Montgomery Avenue? 24/7.
One of my big questions, and a lot of these people in this room know me, I am not a lifelong Upper Perk resident. I've only been here 3 years. I was not here when this building was purchased, but here's what I know. We're sitting here, we're standing, in a 30,000 square foot building. Why is this not a school? Even if, now Pottstown's numbers, that was the year 2000, so we have to inflate them a little bit. If they rehab that middle school for $100 a square foot, that's the year 2000. Things have gone up a bit, right? So maybe it's 125, 130 bucks a square foot now. This is 30,000 square feet we're sitting in. So do that math real quick in your head. What's that? 4.5 million, 5 million to turn this into a functioning school? How many classrooms fit in 30,000 square feet of space?
A lot.
A lot is the answer. At 1,000 square feet per classroom, take out some for cafeteria, for library, for an auditorium, it's about 20. It solves a lot of problems. Now I've heard some things. Buses can't make the turn. Stop. I'll bring some neighbors over with sledgehammers. We'll fix the curbs. Okay? There's things that can be done that don't involve building schools. Now, I haven't been at all the meetings, and I'm sorry for that. I will be at all the meetings from here on out. Okay? Now,
Not funny.
No, not funny.
And you can boo me when I'm done. Okay, the next thing is we were talking about who can afford what. Are you familiar with how much a lunch costs? I mean, since you're the superintendent, roughly.
Mark, this isn't a question and answer period.
I knew you were going to say that, Doc. I hardly ever get answers to questions. Well, then I will speak as to what I've learned. What's that? 30% of the students at Upper Perk School District have either free or reduced lunch program. In order to qualify for that, you have to make about $20,000 or less to show you that the district, the students in this district cannot afford this. The parents can't afford to keep paying more and more taxes. The Montgomery County average, or not average, Montgomery County as a whole, 28.39% of the students on free or reduced lunch program. We sit at 30.64%. I think the students, there's 3,998 roughly in there. It's almost 1,000 students are getting free or reduced price lunches. Goes to show you that the community can't afford a new school, that rehabbing is probably the better way to go. Also, Montgomery County has to raise their tax next year, I think, for Montgomery County Community College. Also, Pennsburg has to raise their taxes to support the police department. And I'm not sure what East Greenville has in store for them. And also, I hear that they're the poorest borough in Montgomery County. So maybe if you guys could rethink, the new school and look at that pamphlet that school teacher was discussing. I think it's interesting reading. We could all learn something from it. Thank you.
Good evening, I put out a pink paper. Good evening, thank you for hearing my comments. I'm Donna Steinhauer, resident of this community for 29 years. In that time, I established a free clothing ministry in the garage of Shalom Fellowship Church. It was open to distribute free clothing once a month for 25 years. This community cannot afford a new middle school. In 2005, I started a bakery ministry, distributing day-old baked goods to this community. My address on Google Maps is Bakery Pickup. Residents picked up stale baked goods weekly for 10 years. I think I'm qualified to say this community cannot afford a new middle school. Thank you.
When I first came to my first board meeting, I left extremely frustrated. I went home and screamed at my husband for an entire hour until I was hoarse. Part of that was my fault for not coming to every single meeting, which I have been from then on, and partly because the board understands all of the paperwork that they're looking at that the public doesn't really have. So it was kind of difficult to follow everything. Now, I realize the board has already voted to build this middle school and 58 million plus interest. I've been assured that we can afford it. I was very skeptical of that, and since that first meeting, I have done extensive research on the various aspects of this. So I've had conversations with the director of the State Tax Equalization Board, which is the STEB board, my local tax collector, both the construction and architectural specialists from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. I've even talked to a local expert about the possibility of bog turtle habitat. I've attended meetings in Upper Hanover Township to educate myself on the conditional use requirements imposed by the zoning hearing board, as well as the Board of Supervisors meetings where there were discussions on sidewalks and lighting. I've been talking to the public to try to create an awareness about this project. I've asked repeatedly for the board to at least slow down and the whole process so that the public can be informed more fully. I've sat in on the facilities committee meeting where the answers to the frequently asked questions, that was a long meeting, were honed by the board, the architect and the engineer, so they could be put on the UPSD website. And now, in the meantime, I and many like-minded citizens have come to some conclusions and have some questions that the board cannot ignore, and I don't want you to put it off for many months like some of the other things I've done. So here goes. For the frequently asked questions, the questions and answers were promised to be put up in July and again in September to answer all the public's questions regarding the project. They were finally posted, I think, in November. I was the only member of the public at the Facilities Committee meeting where the answers to the frequently asked questions were artfully scripted, what I believe to answer as little as possible and shine the project in a positive light. There have been no Facilities Committee meetings since that day, I don't believe. Yet I know that the PlanCon or the state reimbursement process is still ongoing and moving forward at an incredible rate of speed. There are specific steps that need to be taken by the district in order for any amount of state reimbursement to be considered for a small amount of this project. I don't believe the Facilities Committee members have been involved in this planning process, just the district's regular staff, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure why there was really a Facilities Committee formed. I believe there was already a plan in motion. So at the conditional use hearing in Upper Hanover, the zoning board had no choice but to approve the project, but they did so with conditions. One of the conditions was that the district would have to make a PennDOT hazard study done for the traffic on Montgomery Avenue to address the safety of the students walking on Montgomery Avenue to the new middle school. In a subsequent Upper Hanover supervisors meeting, it was revealed that PennDOT would not do a hazard survey until the building was already constructed and in use. When discussing the sidewalk requirements and the student safety issue, the district's plan to not allow students to walk on Montgomery Avenue was met with disapproval by the residents that were at the meeting who live on Montgomery Avenue. These residents said the students walk in the street and through their properties all the time. So also a local resident videotaped hours worth of video showing how it actually is on Montgomery Avenue in the morning. Add more immature students to the current chaos already evidenced in the video, parts of which you can see on www.upperperkconcernedcitizens.com, and you have a recipe for disaster. When the district could not come up with a more viable alternative for the students who live nearby, the transportation manager said, well, we'll just bus them. So what does that cost? At the same Upper Hanover Board of Supervisors meeting, a walkway between the new middle school and the high school was discussed. The architect said there would not be any lighting. It sits pretty far back. The architect said that there would not be any lighting because they had a budget to stick to, and that was $75,000. So after more discussion about the lighting and the wish of the supervisors to have it lit, the architect kind of threw up his hands and said, well, you know, whatever you ask for, we'll do. So what does that cost? As for the design plans themselves, I've been reading up on the PlanCon and reading all the instructions for it. I've really spent a lot of time working on this. I found that there's an architectural clearinghouse of building plans for schools that have already been built and are in use. And they've also had LEED grant approval for their environmental friendliness. So I'm not sure I don't know if any of you even knew that that was available or if there was any such thing, but wasn't sure why we needed a $3 million architect when there's already plans in place that you could use for that. According to the Department of Education, using those pre-approved plans would also allow for additional compensation from the state to the district as far as the LEEDS grant. All right, now the last thing I want to talk about is about taxation. Our district is special because it's in 2 counties. And there's options for our district as how they apply the STEB, which is the state tax equalization ratio, to our assessed values on our tax bills. So I had a heck of a time figuring out which option we actually used, but again, with a little help from the STEB director and one of our local tax collectors, I figured it out. After the thorough education I now have to calculate our actual tax bill, I was surprised to find that although there was a state cap on the tax increase of 2.9%, I believe that's Act 1, our taxes from 2015 to 2016 went up 3.3%. And I'm still working on investigating the significance of that. During my discussion with the local tax collector, I thought it was something that kind of really disturbed me. So anyone who's had a house built since the county reassessed, which was about 1996, 1997, I think, they've paid more than their fair share of school taxes. And this is because there's the state tax equalization board ratio. I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure that no one in the audience really knows how this works. But you would think that your taxes are based on the millage times the assessed value on the front of your tax bill, and that's not true. What they do is they take the assessed value, and if you get a homestead exemption, that comes off. But then they apply this STEB ratio. And the lower the STEB ratio is, or technically the farther away from a reassessment we are, the higher the taxes are. Now when I was thinking about this, all of a sudden it dawned on me, all the people that are living in these new developments that we have, when they buy their house, it's a brand new house, it's technically market value. But unfortunately, they still get the STEB ratio applied to that, which means they're paying their taxes on an inflated market value. And it's well over, say you had a $100,000 house that you bought brand new, you add the STEB ratio to it, and it becomes $158,000 that you're paying tax on. A lot of times, people when they buy their first house, they just get into it by the skin of their teeth. So when they get their their taxes are escrowed in with their mortgage, well, they're getting bills now that are $200 or $300 more than what was escrowed. And when you just worked your way into your first house, that's a big bill on top of it. So if you're adding in to make a brand new middle school on top of that, and on top of that, I can see where we would have a lot of problems with people losing their houses or having to sell them because they can't afford it. I want to talk about the seniors real quick. We have a lot of developments that are that accommodate senior living. Seniors received, I believe, a $4 increase in their Social Security this year, and I believe their Medicare went up a lot more than that. That's according to my mom, anyway. So I'm trying to figure out how are they supposed to help finance this new school when they're dipping into their savings already. So I heard that, again, that's my son, Stephen is my son, and I wanted to say about the fact that he went to Moravian College, which was well over 200 years old, and he got an awesome education. And my daughter also, she went to the middle school, and she's about to take over our family business for our 3rd generation. So I just have one more thing. I also questioned about the financial reports because I was expecting to see them here. I was just hoping that it didn't have anything to do with the Act 34 timing because that's next before your next board meeting. And I also wanted to know why it was January 4th too. That's really close to after Christmas. So if you could change that to later, would be awesome. And that's all I have. Thank you. Thank you.